Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I probably was going to talk about, I'm not really sure what I was going to talk about. There were some things, maybe fill you in on what's going on in Gardena. But I think that, I'd like to probably just piggyback on what the chief talked about and what Lieutenant Fox talked about, because it's what I don't know, for my whole career, I spent 33 years in law enforcement and 15 years elected, here as your council person, first, and the last 9 years as your mayor. And it's something that all around the county, when I give talks, I talk about. People rely on government, and for good reason. Sometimes we rely on government too much, but the fact of the matter is government's necessary. The most important service, in my opinion, that government can provide, by far, is public safety. You can have all the senior programs you want. You can have all the programs to help with a number of social services. You can have all the after-school programs and prevention programs to keep kids off the streets and the like. But really nothing matters if you have chaos in the streets. So that's why, I read a long time ago where public safety is the single most important service that government can provide for its people. And as evidenced by the discussion here that's been taking place thus far tonight, it is something of incredible concern, and it should be, to each and every one of us, okay? Whether you're the victim of getting robbed, literally robbed with a gun stuck in your face and taking $10 out of your pocket, or whether you have your identity stolen and you go through the trauma of having to replace all of your credit cards and the like and lose tens of thousands of dollars, and in some case people lose their life savings, or whether you come home, as probably, I don't know, most of us have done, I have done it, and come home and find your house completely destroyed on the inside because some fool came in and decided to make it their own place and be disrespectful to everything in the meantime. So the most important thing, or one of the most important things the chief talked about, and I know Lieutenant has touched on, is we can't do this by ourselves. Cops can't do it by themselves. Government can't do it. We need you to do what you're doing. This is one of the great neighborhood watch groups around the county, and I've been to a lot of them around the county. This is one that's engaged. This is one where you express your thoughts, your concerns, and you work individually and you work together to try to make communities safer. This community, this neighborhood, Purche Avenue, 153rd Street, the surrounding streets, the surrounding neighborhoods, and bringing in folks from other neighborhood watch groups. Okay, this is vital. A couple years ago, we put up those cameras, right, in strategic locations throughout the city. Now, we didn't quite go like London, but I'm prepared to. If we had the money, I would love to, on every block and every corner. And you know something? When you live in a town like this, anywhere, you always run into the concern of what are people's concerns, right to privacy, et cetera, et cetera. We've had no complaints because, by and large, good people, I don't mind if you got a camera sitting right out there. It's not for you anyway, right? It's for like what the lieutenant and what the chief talked about. It's the bad guy. It's for the bad guys. And the chief and I have had these discussions many times over the years, even before he was the chief. Good people are welcome. Bad people are welcome to the city, as long as they're not acting bad. Okay? Because really, there is no right. This country gives you the right to do a lot of things. You can burn the American flag, right? This country, the Constitution affords you that crazy right. But you don't have the right to violate somebody else's rights, okay? And that's what the job of the police is primarily focused on. I wrote some notes down. I'm just kind of skipping around, but I just want to emphasize what you guys do in working together, working collectively. It's a gut feeling. Somebody doesn't belong on your block. You know it. You've lived here for 25 years. I've never seen you. And you're just walking up and down the street with a big old thick jacket and it's 80 degrees. And the rest of us are wearing shorts and tank tops. What's wrong with the picture? I don't know, maybe he's cold. No, maybe he needs to get a phone call from the police or a visit from the police. Okay? You have to go with, you get a puzzle. It's 10 pieces. Every piece is green and there's a red one. Something's wrong. Right? They screwed up your box when you bought the puzzle. Should have been 10 green pieces. Okay? You gotta know, it's, you know what, actually it's so much common sense that it's too easy. Okay. Who asked the question? I don't think he's sitting there anymore. It says, I'm going to put the officer on the spot about what does a suspect look like. Right? Okay. Lieutenant was right. There are times that you might have a particular area where the suspects might be of a particular color from a particular area. But it's really not like that. They go in waves. You asked the question about jokingly, maybe not jokingly. They found the nice neighborhoods. That's not a joke. Okay? There are areas around this county that have multi-million-dollar homes. Okay? They're getting hammered right now. I talked to a lady 2 weekends ago from Palos Verdes Peninsula. Okay? Crime is up 100% in that community. Okay? Just like the chief mentioned about Torrance. AB 109 was bad for society. Now I know the chief was stepping around it, and I realize that people are going to view what I'm saying. But I don't have a problem with saying it. AB 109 was all about kicking the can down the road. Fact of the matter is, the last time the state of California built some new prisons, there were 5 million people less in this state. And would you think we added 5 million people, they were all good? And then some of the bad ones got better? So that we should actually have less people? It's just the unfortunate fact of life that people are going to commit crimes, and those that do belong behind bars for the betterment of those who are just trying to do the right thing. Make a living, live a decent life, raise a family, go to work, etc. Okay? So, for those of you, AB 109, the realignment, state bill, right? Or the state, the assembly bill. Prisons were too full. So the federal government got engaged, and they told the state of California and the governor, you have to release some folks. Well, by the time you make the state prison, you're a pretty bad character. Because now you've gone up a notch from county jails. And generally, you don't go to state prison unless you're going to have a longer sentence. And now they say, no, you have to go to the county jail. So you go to the county jail. County jail was only equipped and built to hold people for no more than 365 days. Before I left the sheriff's department in August, we got a prisoner that was sentenced to 42 years. Now imagine that, 42 years living in a facility that was designed for no more than 365 days. But what happens when you make room for that person? Now there's somebody else that has to go out who should be doing their time for, quote, a lesser crime. Unfortunately, with the way they're measuring the crimes is your last crime. So you could have a whole bunch of violence in your past. And if the last time all you did was maybe commit a burglary, it's one of the three nons. It's non-violent, non-sexual, and non-serious. Right? Those are the three, right? Non-serious. I don't really even know what serious means in their definition. But folks are getting back out. And so that's why you have this spike. So, like the chief said, the legislators are going to have to get back to the table, and we're going to have to figure something out. Now, granted, you're going to have those who are going to say, hey, we're never going to arrest our way out of crime. I understand that. You need to have the appropriate programs. You need to have programs and pathways for those who made a mistake. And they don't need to be locked up forever, but they need to get an opportunity to get back on their feet. I understand that. Everybody does. Okay? There's people that get hooked on drugs through fault or no fault of their own. But if you give them an opportunity and the right treatment, they might be able to actually re-engage back in society and become productive again. Okay? Same thing with some of the other types of crimes that can be rehabilitated. But then there are some that are just impossible. Okay? And those folks need to do the time that they were sentenced to. That's what the justice system is for. And without that, the justice system becomes a joke. And then you start to have some real problems. So hopefully we're going to get the legislators back to the table at some point and addressing this whole issue of what they call realignment, which is really just another way of a one-word way of saying kicking the can down the road and down to the local levels to become our problem. That is why what you guys are doing is more important than ever. It's important. You know, we've come a long way in this city. For those of you who have been here for a long time, you guys been here more than 15 years? Most everybody here? Okay. So you know those really difficult years we suffered through when we were on the verge, and you've probably heard me say this a million times. And as long as I'm in office, I'm going to say it again and again and again. I say it at every... People who come to my annual State of the City, they have to listen to the same thing. And do you know why I tell the same story a lot?
Because you feel it.
Besides that, I do feel it.
It happened.
Because it happened, and you never... That's right. You never want to forget. We don't want to repeat what we experienced 15 years ago. We were this close. Bankruptcy is a bad word in business and in municipalities. Okay? Because what happens, as hard as you've worked to build up equity in your home, we could have knocked that in half overnight by going bankrupt. If you have a business in town, you can rest assured not many people want to come to a town that's considered bankrupt or gone bankrupt to do business. And the blight that you saw in 1998, 97, 99, all in that area, we don't have that. And we talked about this adopt-a-block. That was the last piece of the puzzle that I went to Mitch Lansdale with and the chief with, as far as what my concerns or my vision for what I wanted to accomplish while I was in office, having grown up in this town since I was in the 2nd grade. First and foremost, we need to get our house in order financially. Right? There is no greater stress than worrying about money at home or at City Hall. Okay? If you live within your means, it sure makes everything else a lot easier in life, stress-wise. Number 2, we needed to get our house in order on the public safety front. Okay, Gardena PD went through a difficult... You've been with the PD for 13 years? Okay. So you came in, you stepped in right at the tail end of some very bad years. So Lieutenant has actually lived a charmed life because he's come in here into some very, very, very good years. He may have experienced one bad year, and about the last 12 have been on the upswing. We happen to have one of the greatest police chiefs, and I've worked with a lot of them in my years. And they're no better, none finer than Chief Medrano. He's smart, he is dedicated, he is educated, he is a visionary, but he's not just someone who's a chief. You ask him a question way down here, as they say, in the weeds. That's where he is. He prides himself on being able to ask the simplest of questions that you might not think a chief would be concerned about. But he does. And he cares about his officers. He grew up in the organization. He was the union president at one time. And Ed was quite the rabble-rouser. But you see, it's great to have someone in a position like that because they know where they came from. And they can relate. And it's what helps keep this organization right at the very top. Because the chief and the rank and file are on the same page. They have the same goals. They're working toward the same thing. They might not always agree, and they shouldn't, but at least they can cordially and respectfully work with one another for the betterment of this community, for the good of the cause. And so, 1999, when I first got elected, we were in a bad way. You guys, it's been well chronicled, right? $5 million deficit, and 2005 is when we really pushed the envelope because we couldn't do it anymore. We couldn't handle this $26 million balloon debt that we had on top of the no money in the checking account. And we were just on the verge of, we came to that that fork in the road. Are we either going to fight this out and pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and get a little luck along the way, or are we going to go down the path and cause a lot of grief to a lot of people financially? And that's when we began the 1 year of negotiations. That very first month that I was the mayor in March of 2005, and we made a conscious decision to go in the direction of trying to fight it. And 1 year later, almost 12 months to the day, you ended up in that place where we settled with the bank. and we negotiated, and we got to where here we are today. You guys know the rest of the story. We're $10.5 million in the black, in surplus, right? That's a $15.5 million turnaround in 15 years. About the time that, or maybe just before Lieutenant Fox came on, Gardena Police Department had been so decimated and crime was really out of control in this neighborhood to go along with all the blight. We were down to about 65 officers. Today, we're at 95. I ask you to go Google any city in California and see who has increased their police department by 50% in the last 15 years. And people ask me, how did you do that at the same time you guys were digging your way out of debt? I don't really know. But we did it because we have great management. Actually, I do know. We have Mitch Lansdale, and we have everybody else that came together. And then we continually ask them the proverbial, we need you to do more with less. And next year we need you to do even more with less. And they did it. And the employees are it's the greatest workforce around. Okay? So we got our PD back on track. And of course, you look at the numbers today versus 1999. Now I know we got a little spike here, but I will tell you this. Crime is down well over 50%. From 15 years ago. And those of you who have been around, you know. I've talked to folks, I've talked to seniors. And by the way, I think I'm at the age of senior now, so who have said to me, for about the past 20 years prior, I haven't been feeling as safe in this neighborhood as I used to back in the day. Tell me that they go to the park every day and go for a walk around, and they feel safe. And there's nothing, I don't think there's anything that makes me more proud as an elected official in this city when I hear people, residents, say things like that they feel safe in this community. And it's something that I told Ed a long time ago, and I've told these officers. The numbers, they don't lie. If crime is up, it's up. If it's down, it's down. But a true measure of success for any law enforcement agency is not in the numbers. It's in how people feel when they're in their own neighborhood. Okay? This is my fundamental belief about law enforcement, and I have a passion for this, and these guys know it, because Ed's right. I'm probably the #1 reporter of stuff to the PD, and I feel bad. But I don't do it because it's for me. I do it because it affects an entire community. Okay? This is my core belief, that everybody in this country, and let's in this case everybody in Gardena, has a right when they go home to have this relative sense of safety and security when they go to their house. Everybody should be able to stand outside at this time of night in this kind of weather and water your front lawn without fear. You should be able to put on your running clothes and go for a jog, like I do. You should be able to walk your dog. Your kids should be able to ride their bikes and their scooters and play ball in the street, all with a relative sense of safety and security. Okay? That is the fundamental right of everybody in this country. That is my core belief as a public servant. Okay? And that is the job of law enforcement, to provide us with that environment. And I would say to you, I've worked with a lot of agencies, I've worked with a lot of cops. There is no finer police department, no finer leader, no finer leadership, no more dedicated officers than these guys in blue here in Gardena, and we certainly appreciate it. So I know that there is a lot of concern, but again, Santa Clarita, dubbed one of the safest cities in America, has that actual designation, which just adds to property value and business value. And you go up there, and it's a long ways away, but when you finally get there, it's a beautiful place. Wide open, big homes, and everything just looks beautifully planned. Newer community. Okay? A few years ago, when this whole burglary thing started, these knock-knock burglaries, they were getting hammered. Okay? Certain group of people, gangsters, from right here in South LA, get in a car, but they're smart. Okay? They go to Enterprise or wherever. They'd rent a car. They didn't just rent any car, they'd rent a Mercedes. And they'd go 3 or 4 deep. in the car, and they'd have a female driver. Now, if you're a police officer, got a brand new 2012, 2011, 2013, whatever year that was, cruising around Mercedes, just driving through the neighborhood. Does that look out of place? Maybe. Most likely not. Park the car, see a person walking up, got a girl sitting in the front seat. It's not suspicious. Knock on the door, nobody's home. Everybody's got a way to communicate now. They hit it, gone. Okay, it's that fast. How'd they pick on our neighborhood? Just like anything else, it's a cherry patch. Once you find something, you keep going back to the same place. So they found District 2. Okay? It's the job of Lieutenant Fox and his team to make sure they unfind us. Okay? But they found us. And that's exactly right. Because they have a network, and what they do is they'll go back and they brag about who got the most booty today. That's what they do. They call them crews. They'll all come back. How much did you get? Who got the most cash? Who got the guns? Who got the most jewelry? That's it. And where'd you go? And they tell, great neighborhood. Bunch of folks down there don't pay attention. Just drive right in. Find out what kind of cars they drive and drive right in. Look like them. Okay? So they're sophisticated, but it's not. But it's not something we pay attention to. Why? Because we're just too busy living our lives. So you got to take that extra second. Go with your gut. Go with what you know is not right and pick up the phone. Say, hey, PD, and don't feel bad. Cops get paid to be curious. That's what they get paid to do. They get paid to get in other people's business. Okay? For the betterment of everybody else. Now, it's a fine line because they have to do it in a very respectful way. Because sometimes you're going to end up getting in somebody's business who's innocent and they get upset. But, you know, that's a difficult part. But they're highly trained. But it's up to you guys to really make sure. Graffiti, I want to talk about graffiti for a second. You know, people think that it's okay. Some people do. Now, the little box that you guys are talking about, I do it. When I go on a run, those big, tall, gray boxes, I stop my run, take a picture, I send it directly to the chief. And I've asked him, I said, I'll send it to anybody. I don't want to send it, but he wants to, because he wants to at least be in touch and know. And I understand, right? Police chief, you're supposed to, if the mayor's making a complaint, then you probably want to know about it. But I don't really want to bother him. I mean, I'm more doing it as a resident and a concerned citizen. But every chance I get. And for those of you who don't know, it's not just a matter of erasing it or cleaning it. You know what they do, right? Why we take a picture of it? Not because we want to know where it is. Because we want to catalog it. And we're going to have a database. And at some point, we're going to figure out who you are, if we don't already know. Your moniker might already be in the database. And if it's not, we're at some point going to go down to the schools, and we're going to talk to all the folks who have all the monikers, and we're going to come after you. We're going to come after your parents. And you're going to have to pay. Because this country gives you a whole lot of rights. A whole lot. More than any other country. But I still haven't found where it gives you the right to just go up and mark somebody else's property because you're expressing yourself. Okay? Graffiti causes fear in people. When you see it, the average person, they get kind of scared. Especially if you're not sure if it's a gang graffiti or if it's just some taggers, some vandals. Brings down property values. And then eventually it leads to all the other things. The same thing like the lieutenant talked about, couches on the street. Pick up the phone. Call it in. You're not bothering anybody. That's our job. Come out, pick it up. Okay? It's about your property values, it's about your safety, it's about business, it's about your family. All these little things is our obligation. So the 4 things that I was really, really, really focused on when I got in office. Fix our finances, get it in order. Get our cops back to numbers. Get them back on the street and have them re-engage with the community. Okay? Number 3, City Hall. That was important to me. For those of you who ever went to City Hall 15 years ago, you're going to know exactly what I meant. You could not get a smile out of anybody in that building if your life or their life depended on it. It was the most sullen and surly group of public servants I had ever run into in my life, and I just couldn't take it. And I told the city manager, what is it? What is wrong with everybody here? You look at them and like, if they even ask you if you want help, what would come out is yes or what? Wow. It was awful. But it was explained to me, right? Years and years and years. Bad finances. Going bankrupt. Am I going to get a paycheck next week? Is my pension still going to be there? Do I need to find another job? They were worried about a lot of things as it related to themselves. And so they weren't focused. And they didn't have anybody telling them what I told them. You're actually in public service. And if you don't like serving the public, then you need to leave. You have to smile, and not just smile on your face, but you have to have a smile from here. People can feel it. I would encourage you to go to City Hall today and try finding someone who's not doing that. It's an incredible place. And we've come a long ways. And I get compliment after compliment after compliment on behalf of various employees because of how well they treat the public. And I'm proud of that. And the very last thing that I'm determined to see happen before I leave office is what Lieutenant termed as adopt a block. I had asked for that a number of years ago. The chief, and when Bruce Pollock was the public works director still, took it on. And we decided to divide the city up into 60 manageable sectors. I think it's 60 or so. Maybe 4 block segments. Could be adopted by, for instance, the Purche Neighborhood Watch Group. This entire area. Okay? And you're responsible for what? Reporting graffiti. Reporting trash. Abandoned trash. Reporting the neighbor who's not taking care of their weeds and they're this high and they're an eyesore, but maybe it's someone who isn't able to take care of their property because maybe they don't have the physical abilities to do that. So we can do it for them, meaning the neighbors can or the city can. But all in all, the overall goal is to make our city look better. Because I asked a question of some folks. Just because we're not Beverly Hills doesn't mean that we can't look as nice as we possibly can. And one of the best compliments I heard was about when we embarked on this, and about 6 months ago, a buddy of mine I grew up with in this town, lives down in Orange County, came back, just wanted to just have a nostalgic drive through his old neighborhood. And he comes back periodically, and he says, Paul, I can't believe how clean the city looks. I said, is that a compliment? And he said, yes, because for years I've been coming back. He goes, it's been really dismaying to see how far it's gone down. And he goes, and now, he goes, I can't believe how good it looks. And that's what we want to do. Right? That's what we want to get to next, is to make this city look as clean and beautiful and aesthetically pleasing as possible, because that will enhance your property value. And that will be good for business. And that'll just be good all the way around. So those are all the things that we've been working on, that I'm focused on. I don't think I have anything else right now. We have a State of the City coming up. You know, these are some of the things I would talk about, but it's just a matter of, I tell these stories because they're important for people to know. It's a challenge, but we're in a very good spot. We're in a really good spot. I'll leave you with one before I'll take questions. One last bit of thing that I think you guys will really appreciate. Drive on the road. Leave the city of Gardena. Go to Torrance. Go to the city of LA. Go anywhere else. Tell me what you think of the conditions of the roads. Awful. Okay? There's a thing called the pavement index. that the state of California rates us on. The average in I think California, the average city is somewhere around 60, 40 to 60. Last year, we were rated at 83, and they projected that as we continue to repave, not just slurry seal, but repave every street in Gardena, and this was a year ago, that within 4 years, the projection by the state of California is that we will have a pavement index of 93, which by far exceeds anybody else around. And I'll tell you, that's again one of those things, just simply quality of life. Okay? Trying to do the little things that we take for granted to make life better for everybody here. Thank you very much, all of you, for your time, your attention, and your commitment to a better Gardena. Thank you.